everybody gotta do? What?
All right. Hey there, guys. It's Japanese Tutor. We're going to go over the Stonewall Dutch, and we're going to do the introduction, the seventh move, B3. And I'm going to take it right from right here. This is the lesson 1, 7 B3 introduction. And I'm just going to read from the text right here. A positive attitude may not solve all your problems, but it will annoy people. It will annoy enough people to make it worth the effort. That's funny. and that's by Herm Albright. In the first lesson, we shall go right into the heart of the matter and investigate on move 7, B3, White's most popular choice and one of his 3 principal continuations. This is quite an extensive subject, so the critical follow-up 895 will have to wait for our next lesson. Okay, so we're going to go right into it. So D4, and we're going to look at it as black this time. So if they play D4, we're going to play F5, F5, knight F3, knight F6, G3, E6, bishop G2, D5, the stonewall, castles, bishop D6, C4, C6, B3. All right, so on this move, oh, something happened. All right. Thank you for following. Thank you so much for following. So on this move, I think we're supposed to play Queen E7. That's what was happening in the introduction before, because their main plan is to play Bishop A3 and trade off bishops. But let's see what they recommend. After Queen E7, we arrive at the first structure. Okay, so Queen E7. White's most obvious continuation is Bishop B2, which we recommend to meet with B6. So they recommend Bishop B2. We play B6. The reason is that maybe we can play our bishop to A6 and C4, C5 doesn't come so easily. Okay, so after B6, they also give the line. So after this, they also give the line Queen C1 and Queen C1, and then after Bishop B7, Bishop A3, A4. Wait, yeah, this is covered in game 3, so we learned that already. What we should do and how we should continue with this. That this bishop isn't that important. We can just develop normally, and there are other key squares. So usually they play bishop here to weaken our control over the e5 square, right? But after this b6 bishop b7, we're saying, hey, this is not the only important square. There are other important squares as well, and we can target them on this line, and we can fight for them. Okay, no problem, Ray. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, we're going to go over the Stonewall Dutch. Yeah, this book is all about the Stonewall Dutch. I have a few books that I want to go over that I want to do stuff with you guys with. So like Sicilian Dragon. I want to do some C4 openings. A lot of stuff. Okay. So we're gonna go back. Okay. Let's move on. So instead of bishop b2, they can play a4. Oops, sorry. And the reason behind a4, actually, he went over this, I think, in game 2 or game 3, is that if a4, now you're preparing this because now the rook and the knight defend against it, right? And a4 should be met by a5, taking some control over this weak square. Okay. And normally bishop b2 is followed by queen c1 and bishop a3. But first, let's first see what may happen if white quietly continues development. So we're going to go into game one. All right. So let's go back. And d4, e6, c4, f5. So different move order. Like, so she was comfortable, or she or he, it's a Maya. Um, so they were very comfortable playing e6 and playing the French if they played e4, or maybe playing the c5 variation. Okay, but d4, e6, c4, f5, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, d5, knight f3, c6, castles, bishop g6. So we shall return to move order finesses in the later games, and just note that knight h3 is an important alternative that you should do. So I'll move 5, knight h3. So instead of this, when you play d5, instead of playing, hold on, go back, d5, where is it? Oh, there we go, e6. So here's, instead of knight f3, knight h3 is a very important thing, and he went over this partly already in one of the games. Is so he wants to control this square. That way, maybe when the bishop goes to d6, this knight's already here. Then bishop f4 at some point is pretty strong because you can retake with the knight. So he was just giving that as an alternative. Okay, so c6 castle, bishop d6. All right. So when when I took up the Stonewall Dutch a few years before this game, I used to put my bishop on e7 in Botvinnik style. So e7 is the classical way to play the Dutch, and the classical way to play the Stonewall Dutch. And this is more of the modern Stonewall Dutch, modern, because the theory is still like 1995 or something. A lot of people went into it. It went crazy hype. People are so hype over it, and then it was all like super explored territory. So they're just like, let's just go into something else. Uh, so he used to put his bishop on e7 because he feared c5, bishop c7, right? So he feared this, c5, bishop c7, and a3. This is what he feared. And when white can hold on to the pawn on c5 or 8 f4. Instead of playing a3, he can play bishop f4. If he takes, then he has a really nice control over this square. And also this square, which is usually a break that we want to play. Later, I've concluded that there's no reason to be afraid of either, and I'm now more than happy to exchange bishops on f4 if I can double white's f-pawns. The pawn chain d4, c5 isn't very dangerous, this pawn chain here. For black anyways, I play b6 and I get a great light from my light square bishop on a6. So good thing to note. So d6, bishop d6, and b3. Queen e7 like always, right? Because we don't want them to trade off on this line. Bishop b2, b6. It was this relatively new idea which encouraged me to take up the Stonewall. I got the idea from my coach at the time, Mr. Helmers, who in turn had been inspired by some Danish IMs, and in particular by Jens Christensen, who was among the first to regularly develop the bishop this way rather than the traditional d7 e, so the d7 e8 bishop h5 maneuver that sometimes is played. So they have a question here. How can I know when to develop with b6 and when to play bishop d7 and bishop e8? Okay, that's a very good question actually. what's the book called? The book is called Stonewall Dutch, or I think it's called Winning with the Stonewall Dutch. Yeah, Stonewall Dutch. Okay. All right. It is to some extent a question of taste. We shall also see some examples where black delays the development of his bishop for a long time. But if in doubt, play b6 and go with the bishop to b7 or a6. That is much more fun. It may occasionally be the wrong decision, but in that case, your opponent will have to punish you, um, which is really easy, and that's frequently an excellent winning opportunity for black. So really nice. So he's saying, when do I develop? The question is, when do I develop here? Right? When do I develop this way, and when I develop this way? He's saying, if you can't just develop this way, it might be the wrong choice. If in doubt whether which way to go, just play that way because they have to punish you, and then you know that's not the situation for future reference. But I think he's going to cover it later on in this book. But if there is any doubt about how to develop the bishop, why not delay the decision with castles? In game 3, we shall see some of the advantages of keeping the king in the center, but the main reason for the tactical finesse in the knight e5 line that we shall examine in lesson 2. All right, so this is move 9, knight bd2. White is maneuvering her knights to d3 and f3. This was recommended by Wee in his classic books on the middle game, and may be a good idea if black maneuvers his light squared bishop to the king side. But with b6, the bishop on b7 or a6, black can at any moment exchange a pawn structure in the center, making the knights look silly on f3 and d3. Okay, so bishop b7, knight e5, castles. Black has got a few weaknesses in his camp, most notably the e5 square, but arguably also the pawns on e6 and c6. However, he has a space advantage and is close to completing his development with lots of active options. So rook c1 and a5, claiming some space here. This charge is a relatively new addition to black's positional armory in the stone wall, as are most plans including queenside activity. So usually you go for a kingside activity in the stone wall, but they're saying that this is kind of a nuance, a new way to play. And it isn't always clear what it threatens, but the option of a4 may prove useful, and the extra queenside space may also come in handy in certain lines. Nevertheless, black has at least 4 fully playable alternatives, so he can play instead rook c8 here, knight a6. So instead of this, rook c8, knight a6, c5, and knight bd7 are all equally playable. This flexibility grows from the basic solidity of black's position and makes it extremely hard for white to prepare uh, really any rote learning. Only genuine understanding will make him ready for all of black's diverse plans. So he has to really understand this to kind of take you down. Pretty good. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Elevated Design. Um, so d3. So that's really nice. So after rook c1, a5, he plays knight d3. White continues a knight maneuver, but there are alternatives. If there's any difference between the game move and knight df3, so instead of this, you can play this. It must be that knight e4 is more tempting when white hasn't gotten the immediate f3 available, right? So now this is a little bit more tempting since he can't kick away the knight. So that's a pretty important point. And after bam, e3, this is a game in 1993. c5, decap, oops, sorry. Oh, we're playing c5 here. c5, d captures c5, b captures c5. Also, he notes that in this book, even if you aren't playing the Stonewall Dutch, it'll leave you as a better player because some of the ideas you can use for the openings that you do play. And it's good if your opponent wants to play the Stonewall Dutch and you know the best tries and you know the best ideas and what he should be going for. Because if he doesn't go for it, then you know how to counter it. So it's all good for a developing player to learn all the different openings or some of the ideas, and then you can kind of like either transpose or use some of the ideas that you've learned. Like sometimes an end game will look similar. You're like, hey, I know this position already. Let's go into this line. And that's how we get wins. So e4, c5, d3, basic catch d3. Bam, queen c2, knight a6, holding this pawn right here. Maybe going here. a3, rook fd8, rook fd1, rook ac8, and knight d3. And black came up with the original knight c7, knight fe5. Maybe he wants to play f3 now. And then he played the knight a8. Whoa. Wow. f3. Knight f6, queen c3, a4. Wow. That's kind of ingenious. a4, bishop captures a4. And then here, saying, hey, either you're gonna push your pawn and make it a weakness, or I'm gonna take it. Very nice. I like that move a lot. And maybe we can go here and trade off a bishop, and then pick up the pawn later. Really, really nice stuff. That's a pretty awesome move. But ace, and he notes that this is an imbalance, but probably equal position. This is a beautiful like knight a8. Who plays knight a8? I play the French and Dutch often. Stonewall as black, depending on what the opponent does. I'm at least has 1600 class. It's it's cool. I mean, we all have to start somewhere, right? That's what it takes to get better. Sometimes you just have to start somewhere. All right. You got to go. Nice playing against you, and it's cool how you know so many languages. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the game. Um, but yeah, hopefully I'll see you around. If not, have a great summer. Have a beautiful time. And yeah, thank you, Ketson. Thank you for being here. Okay, so let's go into the question. So let's go back before all of this transpired to look at other moves. So I think it was 12, and then I think he played knight d3 before this. Yeah, he played knight d3. Okay. Is it really an advantage to have the bishop pair in close positions like the ones normally arising from the Stonewall? That's the question here. And the answer that he gives is that is a difficult question to answer in general terms. A key evaluation factor is the strength of the unopposed bishop. In this case, white's dark square bishop. Okay. In my game or his game, took Markov. It wasn't too fearsome on b2, but if nothing else, the bishop pair is often a defensive resource that only shines when your opponent opens the position in order to make use of the active knights. Okay, going back to the game, knight a6. Kramnik points out that knight bd7 is also possible. The move appears somewhat inconsistent and has in fact never been played in this position. Nevertheless, the position after knight bd7, it, gave a game from, yeah, but that it happened in week on Z 1987. So knight f3, knight f3. After a few months later, they played a4 instead. T-Style played a4, trying that to solidify, get some queenside space. Uh, and in a game that was prematurely drawn after c5, so a4, c5, e3, and rook a8. I think the queen's on c2. Rook a e8. Nope. And let me just make sure I have the position. b7, 95, 95, d3, f3. I see. So knight f3. Okay, beautiful. This position has some theoretical significance, and it is a postcard picture of White's classic anti-Stonewall strategy. White has achieved what the classicists consider the optimal anti-Stonewall setup, with the knights on d3 and f3, securing a complete grip on e5, and it is generally a harmonious position. But for all its harmony, this setup isn't a worry for Black. White simply has spent too much time achieving too little, and he's gonna play knight b4. This may not be very thematic, but Black would be quite happy to exchange the tempo consumer on d3, right? Because he moved one, one, two, three, and then maybe four, and we moved one, two. Okay. Uh, in particular, if the exchange would happen on b4, so the game continuation was the only line that had to be evaluated carefully. A major alternative is to play knight e4, since the knight is over here. Knight f to e5, c5, e3, and b4. Knight b4 now. Oops. Knight b4 now. And it's still like about even. It's still about equal, but they have to know what they're doing. And that's kind of the point. If they don't have a plan and you do have a plan, even a bad plan is better than no plan at all. Because then you get better at planning. Okay. All right. So that was a major alternative. But okay, let's say here, and then b4, and c5. That's what he played in the game. This radically changes the nature of the position, but in my opinion, the change is in our favor, as it leaves Black with central superiority. B captures c5, D captures c5, bishop c7, a3. Knight a6. He notes that knight captures d3 is actually a mistake, that e captures d3 and Black's e6 pawn is going to be the real weakness. So instead of that, we were going to play knight a6, knight fe5, and then knight b8. White's position looks good, but in fact, she has nothing. That's what Kramnik said. F3 question mark. And they have to know that b4 was actually played in a correspondence game, and they had success with that. The idea is that after knight bd7, knight captures d7, queen captures d7, b5, and white gets a big advantage. Okay, so they said that after b4, that black should improve by bishop a6 instead. f4, and then a captures b4, a captures b4, and then bishop captures e5. Bishop captures e5, and queen b7 with unclear play. Okay, reasonable. So knight b8, f3, knight bd7. Knight captures d7 here is a little dubious. White unnecessarily gives up control over the important e5 square. Possibly white overestimated the value of forcing a quick e4 break. Knight captures c7. I may be too generous when giving this obvious move an exclamation mark, but not everybody likes moving their knights backwards, even if it's clear that the knight is ideally placed here, influencing on c5 and also on e5. Yep, a bad plan is better than none at all. Yep, that is true. Thank you for the quote. All right, knight captures c7. e4 is the break that she was going for. F captures on e4. F captures on e4. Rook captures f1 check. Queen captures f1. Bishop a6. Queen d1. Rook b8. I now believe that black is slightly better. E captures on d5. He played, or she played, they played, sorry. They played here, C captures e5, but they said that E captures e5 was a little bit better. So let's look at this. That's what they played in the game. They say that this is a little bit weaker or inferior to this move, where now black enjoys a strong pawn center, and the white's queenside majority is also quite dangerous. Okay, but let's go after C captures e5. C captures d5, c6. Odd skill, thank you for following. Thank you so much. Knight f6, knight c5, bishop c8, king h1. And he said that queen d2 attacking a pawn would have been prevented my next move. Bishop d6. So instead of king h1, maybe queen d2 is a little bit stronger because they attack this pawn. So you would have to maybe try to cover that first before doing anything. Okay, but the game went this way. Bishop d6, and then knight d3 question mark. Gives away a pawn for very little. Queen d4 would have been answered by the strong king h8. So here, queen d4, king h8, planning e5, where the bishop doesn't have this pawn to take with check. But giving up the bishop pair with bishop catches f6 might be, interesting as well. All right, so let's go back. So bishop d6, knight d3, bishop catches a3. Bishop catches a3, queen captures a3. Knight c5. Maybe they thought that the knight was the knight was here, but it's not doing anything. Maybe they thought that the knight was like stopping the queen's play, but not really. I have a lot of good moves here. Knight c5, rook b6, and then knight takes e6. Are we looking at the same position? White is most white is most probably lost in all variations, so this must primarily be seen as a desperate attempt to confuse me in time trouble. Okay, so they were just in time trouble. Okay, so this move is just a bad move. Bishop captures c6, c7. Queen f8. After queen f8, queen e1, attacking the pawn. h5, bishop f3, bishop c8. Oh, sorry, I played a5. I played a4 instead of this, so it's supposed to be here, and then bishop f3, and then here. And then queen captures on a5. Queen captures on a5. Knight d6, rook d6, maybe promoting this, holding on to this. Rook d6, queen d2, getting in the way. D4, b4, trying to storm the pawns. Knight g4, rook f1, intending check and takes. Rook f1, queen e7, rook c1, d3, b5, and queen f6. And he notes a piece down with my time pressure over, and now he can safely resign because, I mean, he's a piece down, right? So we'll continue this and then we'll kind of reflect. b6, rook captures b6, queen captures d3, queen captures c7, d5 check, bishop e6, queen captures here, knight f6, queen a5, queen c4, threatening checkmate, and checkmate always comes first. Okay, check and checkmate always comes first before a piece. So a lot of the tactics sometimes you want to threaten checkmate, and then they have to do something even though your pieces are hanging. Yeah, there are always a lot of good tactics like that. You should always look for checks when evaluating a position. Rook e1, rook a6, queen e5, bishop f7, blocking all the entry points. Bishop f7, rook d1. I mean, I don't know what he's really trying. I mean, this is a pretty simple position. You're down a piece. But you know, if they can trade off all the similar pieces and they only have a knight and a pawn, then it's not so winning anymore, right? So maybe that's what she was going for. So we just played move 49, and then rook d1, rook a2. Queen f5, trying to trade off queens. We don't trade off queens, right? We never trade off queens. Sorry, I lost the position. We're move 50. Rook d2. I guess, wait, what? Rook a2. Rook's on d1, rook a2. Queen f5. Oh, queen f5, sorry. Rook d2, threatening checkmate. Rook a1. Bishop d5. Threatening maybe some checkmate threats. Maybe here, threatening checkmate. Here, maybe knight takes. Bishop d5, bishop captures d5, check, queen captures d5. Queen captures d5. Knight captures d5. Rook a4. Knight e3. I want my knight here. That's a perfect place for him. King g1. Rook g2 check. King h1. Rook here. And we're going for checkmate. Nice. Very nice. And if not, then let's say rook a1. We have a lot of alternatives, but we can just keep the position pretty much locked like this. We can even play rook f3. We can try to get the king up and then threaten some stuff as well. So very nice game. That was a really, really nice game. All right, so the Ally Design, thank you. Thank you for the chat. And that ends our lessons. So thank you guys so much for being here. Again, this is Japanese Tutor. So please go on YouTube, and if you want to see more lessons, I have them all in a playlist. This is Dutch Defense. Sub, notification bell, and be happy. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. If you want, also, there's my Instagram right here.